recommend the Angry Grandpa Show. It's a YouTube channel. It's about an elderly man who gets angry all the time and smashes furniture. They've garnered millions of views and subscribers. The channel is run by his son Michael, and he also was a co-host of a podcast with Isaac Guest called Shut the Fuck Up and Listen. And they would mainly cover sports, wrestling, and occasionally Angry Grandpa. Fast forward a little bit to early 2015. Isaac and I were friends on Facebook, and he posted a status that he's looking for 2 co-hosts for a current event podcast show called We're Not Done Yet, and I was immediately interested. I talked to the guy. He was pretty chill and laid back, and he wanted to know my take on the Ferguson and police brutality, and he wanted the 2 co-hosts to have a different view that had some variations of the show. And I was completely aboard. I figured it'd be a good time. I soon came to realize Isaac wasn't who he said he was, and with April Fool's just around the corner, he proceeded to hack my voicemail and have my insurance agency prank call me with an apparent mix-up, while commenting on the obscene voicemail that he recorded, supposedly leading them to believe that that was me. How he had access to my insurance agency was a voice message he heard while going through my mailbox, and he was able to get access to a caller and then somehow commensurate. Pretty unprofessional ever that she went along with me, I must say, but beside the point. I was cool with it, no biggie. We did our prank show, but I was beginning to question being a part of the show after that. And I then attempted to quit shortly after, and that's when he made verbal threats to get me fired from my job by having Michael make an Angry Grandpa video blasting my workplace, myself, my family, and that he knows Anonymous, and he framed a hacker called Ghost Exodus because he pissed him off and he had him put away for 9 years. Probably a lie, but I didn't want to take my chances. You never know who you're going to meet on the internet. He ended up contacting my workplace and telling my bosses that I was making calls via the work phone, which didn't take because they checked out the camera recordings and made them aware that he clearly didn't know what he was talking about. He still felt the need to threaten me with fake screenshots of the calls, which was pathetic. Of course, I didn't want this childish nonsense to continue, so I apologized to him, kissed ass, and I was back on the show. To be clear, I didn't want to be on the show after that. I wanted Isaac out of my life. I didn't want to be friends with him, but I still felt the need to keep the peace and play nice with him because I knew the second I blocked him on Facebook, hell might ensue because he wanted to proceed to stalk me. Later on, some more disagreements took place after I fooled around and acted like I was drunk on the Facebook group for the podcast. I didn't really care at that point. And it caused a big stir. And also my girlfriend blocked Isaac on Facebook. She wanted nothing to do with him. And he turned the other co-host against me. Funny enough, those co-hosts no longer work with him, and they know exactly how he is. And I'm even still in contact with one of them. It even went as far that some filmmakers I was involved with were pulled into the mess, causing an even bigger stir. At the end of that, Isaac offered me a life-changing deal that Paul Heyman, a wrestling spokesperson, was interested in me for his show Heyman Hustle. And the only stipulation was that I had to remain on the show. I knew it was a poor attempt to keep me on the podcast, as a co-host, and I could see right through him. And I declined, which is when he threatened to put me on blast. I blocked him immediately. I was finished. He then proceeded to send me threatening texts by sending me mine, my girlfriend's, and my parents' address, and saying he's having Michael take care of them, and also going as far as saying, your mother is going to wish that tumor killed her. My mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor 2 years ago, and she had it removed. And I told him about that before all this happened. So of course, that just pissed me off, because he would really sink that low and threaten someone like that. He recently got a new co-host who was a nice guy, and I warned him about Isaac, telling him to be careful. But of course, it got back to him, and Isaac went after me. My mistake. And I do believe he ended up learning himself. I ignored Isaac's constant threats, and not surprisingly, nothing happened. The messages stopped. Figures. I'll talk, as always. Isaac phones me out of the blue, and he tells me that he recently went through an ordeal, and told me about his newfound faith, and that he's a changed man, a born-again Christian running a religious-themed podcast called We're Not Done Believing. And he wanted me to check it out and maybe come on the show a couple times. I didn't want to, but I ended up doing so just to kind of see for myself. Plus, I didn't know how he would react if I said no. I only stayed on for one show, and after that, I was thinking all this stuff was over with. I'd say about 6 or so months pass. I casually would listen to the show to kill some time. It's probably 30% religion, and the rest of it is about wrestling or his rap songs or somebody's crush that's in the chat. It was a little hard to take seriously, but it was still sort of entertaining. One of the things that really got me is that he claims to be a hardcore Christian, but he's saying hell and damn on the show, but that isn't considered cursing in his book. And he's spewing blasphemy by saying, oh my God, on air every 5 minutes. Pretty good example of a Christian podcast, if you ask me. You can sort of see why I was entertained by it. Eventually, I could see Isaac was up to his old ways again when he tried putting Joshua Feuerstein on blast. He's an evangelical pastor known for yelling into the camera, posting videos about getting right with God or homosexuality or whatever. You've likely seen him. And that was the first red flag. Even though I pretended to be amused by it when Isaac told me he got help from Anonymous for getting in contact with him, I started to get even more annoyed with Isaac when he felt the need to text scriptures to my phone in the early morning. After politely asking him to knock it off, I work third shift, so I'm trying to sleep around that time. He would tell me to put my phone on vibrate, and the text goes out to everyone, and there's nothing he can do about it. Just behaving like a child. You can hack someone's voicemail, but you can't remove someone's name from a group text? That doesn't make any sense to me. Come on. I ended up blocking his text, and he told me that he would just send them to me via different numbers, which thankfully never happened. I would still act like I was cool with him, trying to keep the peace. But in reality, someone who behaves the way he does and also wishes death on your mother after she recently had a near-death experience and not apologizing for it even after recently bringing up to him, I decided enough was finally enough. It was a mistake on my part. It should have been way sooner. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt so many times because he went through an ordeal, but enough was enough. Obviously, he should have remained blocked. He got mad when he found out I didn't really keep up with the show anymore by saying, oh, too much truth for an alcoholic? I basically called him out on a show saying it's not even religious. And that's when he proceeded to keep calling me a drunk and I don't know anything, and then I was just lying about being a Christian because I'm just a drunk. Pretty much his only ammunition. Is childish and not to mention annoying. I blocked him for good, and he texted me from a different number saying, don't think because I'm a Christian I won't crash your world down, then later on says he's having Michael do it via Twitter and Anonymous, so he doesn't have to. I ignored him, and I figured that was the end of it. Finally have this stalker out of my life for good. Then a week passes, and he gets in contact with a friend I work with in film, and said that I got drunk and threatened to kill his 3 kids. And that him and Michael are going to take care of me so I never make a stupid comment like that again. He even went as far to post a photo of me on Twitter with these accusations, which really made me laugh my ass off because he's really grasping at straws. This guy really hates me, and there's nothing he can do about it but talk and spread hate. But then it pissed me off, because he's putting out a false persona to these people who tune into him, as well as his peers, and it's time to expose this fraud for who he really is. First off, I'm not a father, but if someone via the internet threatened my kids, I wouldn't try and defame them via YouTube or Twitter and leak their workplace. That's just childish and immature. It shows you clearly don't know what you're talking about. If it were true, I would contact the authorities immediately. Telling someone that and saying you're going to make videos about them just shows that person you're lying and you're an idiot. And involving your kids in this? Come on, dude. You're digging a bigger hole for yourself. 2. I listened to a part of your show. I get you try and play the nice guy helping your fellow brother out. Enough with the act. I can pull up these texts again. You were pathetically trying to ridicule me because you don't think I'm a Christian because I occasionally drink, and it was blowing up in your face. The Bible says, let he without sin cast the first stone. As well as Jesus saying, you may help your brother out by getting the speck out of his eye, but before you do so, get the log from your eye. And believe me, you have plenty to work on. Just one Christian to the other Christian. Even though, I have some news for you, Isaac. You are not a Christian. If you would make up these accusations because I stopped talking to you, willing to attempt to wreck someone's life, someone you don't even know, you're just an evil little child. You judge people because it's fun, and you use Christianity as a weapon, as a tool, because it gives you views. Because not many people really gave 2 shits about what you would post beforehand. It's people like you who give Christians a bad name. 3. I was never a drunk. The alcoholic act, which I will admit, was a shitty attempt at getting you to show remorse and back down. Although it was temporary. You were telling me you were going to mess with my life, and I wanted to be finished with it and the show. The truth is, I drink as much as the normal person. I enjoy throwing back a couple once in a while, but I don't overdo it. I don't go bar hopping. But by all means, keep believing that. It just makes you look like an even bigger fool. 4. Michael does not know Anonymous. I just watched him go through a mess like this recently when he was dealing with someone strikingly similar to you. And he's an idiot if he actually believes what you're saying. Although a part of me is starting to believe he actually knows the truth, and he put you up to it. I mean, you are best friends. It would make sense. If that's the case, shame on him. I suppose I was wrong about the guy. I first got on the We're Not Done Yet show around March 2015, and I left around April. Isaac contacted me a couple months after that, telling me about his We're Not Done Believing show and his newfound faith. So now we're at February 2016 when I blocked Isaac for good. I'm just getting this video out there showing you what kind of person he really is. I have the evidence, as well as witnesses, and I want to put a stop to this immediately. You're probably asking, why didn't I go to the authorities? Well, I did, a long time ago. Turns out all the threats and evidence didn't take, and the comment towards my mother after Michael and I make that video, she's going to wish that Tim would kill her. Apparently wasn't enough of a threat. The only thing they could really do something about was him hacking my voicemail, but there was no evidence. He deleted the podcast episode where he openly admits it. Smart move, by the way, Isaac. I would have done the same thing. I could have brought my then insurance agent into it, as a witness, but that would likely get her fired and possibly causing a bigger stir, so I just decided Isaac wasn't worth it. I will admit, some things should have been handled better on my part, but I obviously can't go back and fix it. If I could go back and handle them better, it wouldn't have made a difference, because Isaac is Isaac. He loves chaos. It's his only form of entertainment. For the longest time, I've avoided making this video because I know the dude's all talk for the most part, and he just wasn't worth it. He's just a stalker. But I want this to be over with. He's a man-child behind a computer with a god complex who still believes he's in grade school. He's a coward, a fraud, a fake Christian. For anyone who's ever met this individual, I feel humbly sorry for you. He's already dug himself a hole. He says on a private message that going to the cops would be too easy. But meanwhile, on Twitter, he's saying that he has no evidence, and the cops don't do anything about it. Which is it, Isaac? You're full of baloney. I will gladly share my phone records with the authorities and show that I haven't been in contact with you since I blocked you on Facebook. Enough of the games. And if there's some form of retaliation because of this video, you will be to blame. You've already buried yourself enough with these lies, dude. It's all here. This is my statement.